Billy, how do you get Rudy Gobert out of the paint? That's a broad question.
Well, I mean, he's going to be back there. There's really not a lot necessarily you can do. Obviously, Steven, I think with his passing can kind of, facilitate and create some offense. But like in terms of talent, getting him out of the paint, he'll get out when Steven's, away from the ball, like low where he can't zone out there. But when Steven's got the ball or just pick and roll, those kind of things, he's going to try to stay in the paint. So it's not about necessarily trying to get him out of there. I mean, that's what he does. That's what they do, and they will do that, to try to obviously utilize his shot blocking.
Do you want to incorporate Steven even more out of that high post to get Gobert away from?
Well, that too, but the other thing too is also posting the ball too, at the basket with different people. Steven, I think our guards doing a great job making decisions, and putting pressure at the basket, trying to create 2-on-1 situations where you can make some decisions. There's things for him that that he's probably seen throughout most of his career, in terms of understanding what teams are trying to do to eliminate, his presence at the rim.
Last year, and correct me if I'm wrong, I was thinking of game one from last season where I think you started initially with Paul on Ingles in the corner. He did a good job of staying home on him and kind of limiting his touches.
Who's this now?
Oh, Paul on Joe Ingles.
Joe Ingles, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then as the series went on, Joe started to get some more of those looks from the corner. Like, what changed in that series to where Joe started getting better?
Well,
looks?
I think it goes back to some of the things we talked about, about our defense now, and a big challenge here tomorrow night is I thought the ball got downhill with Rubio a lot. It got downhill with Mitchell a lot, and then a lot of times the rotations and the pull acrosses allowed those diagonal skip passes or those, drift passes to the corner, which kind of freed him up to take more threes out of the corner. But a lot of that's going to be predicated on how well you can contain and control the ball.
When it comes to the way you guys have been defending the three the last couple of games, what concepts do you want to get back to?
Yeah, I think that there's been times in transition, and that's probably the hardest thing to do. I think if you look at the number of threes it made in the Brooklyn game and in the Chicago game, there was quite a bit we're in transition, and that's hard because you got to sprint back, and a lot of times you don't have a man. I do think there's been some other times where we've had miscommunication, and some of the miscommunications has led to getting off of shooters' bodies, and it's given them a little bit more free looks.
It's kind of an idea that Paul's playing maybe some of the best basketball of his career, if not the best. What have you seen that's kind of maybe pushed him to a higher level than he's even been at in his career?
Well, I think, one, he's probably a little bit more comfortable here than he was a year ago. I think that's probably helped. I think probably playing alongside Steven and Russell and Dennis has helped, where he can get some catch and shoot opportunities. And then obviously when he is playing off the dribble, he's got other guys that he can kind of facilitate to or create himself. And then I think that probably the biggest thing is I think Paul's he's a basketball player, so I think he's always looking for ways to stretch and improve himself. And like I said, I don't think he's a guy that's wrapped up in how many shots he's getting. I think he really tries to impact the game on both ends of the floor, whether it's through passing, whether it's defending or rebounding, or whether it's trying to be a facilitator. He's going to look to do different things to impact the game, and I think probably all those things have enabled him to really, from day one in his career, continually get better.
There's that idea of him being more comfortable and more confident, having more ownership maybe over the team a little bit. What is that? Like, what makes a guy more comfortable? Is it just the teammates, the future question?
Well, I think obviously, when a trade like that happens, and probably he just gets a phone call and says, listen, you've been traded to Oklahoma City. Okay, so he knows nothing. He doesn't know me. He doesn't know the front office. Doesn't know the medical staff. He probably knows some of the guys just through competing with them. I don't know what kind of communication and did Russell and he have prior to that, any of that stuff. I don't know, but and now you walk into a different situation, and now you're a free agent, and you're like, okay, like I'm not just going to try to come in here and like take over. I'm trying to feel my way. I'm an unselfish player. I'm a selfish guy. What can I do to contribute and help? And then all of a sudden, stylistically, it's totally different. Where he's used to having the ball in his hands all the time in Indiana, it didn't happen. So I think that, as going through it a year, learning to play with Russell, learning to play with Steven, knowing the guys on our team a little bit better, understanding the commitment that he made in the summer to be here, there's probably a lot more ownership that he can take than he was able to a year ago, because he was coming in and didn't know where it was, didn't know anything. I think he had a very, very open mind last year, which I really, really appreciated and respected, because I think everybody felt like, okay, there's no way he's going to stay here. But I do think that he himself came in and said, okay, let me see what this is like. Let me see how this goes. And I think he gave it, a great opportunity and a great chance to see how it could work. And I think give him credit. I mean, he probably has learned too off of last season of not only him being more comfortable, but where he can really be effective after going through a year with a lot of these guys.
Is comfort a two-way street? Do you feel like you can coach him more in a different way?
I never felt that. No, I felt the same way with him. I think the biggest thing for me was not the coaching. I think the biggest thing for me last year was getting to know him. Like, I'm running plays for him, like last year at times in games, and he's just like, stop running plays for me. He says, just let me get it. And, like, those are the kind of things I had to learn. I had to talk to him about, different situations or things that he felt comfortable running, or, what side of the floor does he like coming off screening actions on? What side of the floor does he like in pick and rolls? When he's posting, I had to learn him. I mean, I can watch things on film and say, oh, that's a good play, and he made that shot, let's run that. But it's a lot more to it than that. So I needed to learn him and then try to work with him to put him in situations that he can be who he is as a player. And I think that times last year, not that it was hard dealing with him, I think it was hard because it was just such a new situation, and you had three guys that were used to having the ball, in Russell, Carmelo, and Paul, and they all knew they were going to sacrifice to a certain extent, but like, how do you go about doing it? And how do you play off of each other? Those things were challenging. So you talk and communicate with him. And now I've got a much, much better feel for him as a player. And, going through a playoff series, going through ups and downs, highs and lows, you're able to understand each other a lot better in those situations.
Bill, is there a difference between the challenge of Andre Drummond and now Rudy Gobert tomorrow night? Is there a difference between those two in how Steven or the front line has to prepare for those guys?
Yeah, I mean, Drummond, there's definitely probably a difference as players, but I also think that they both kind of present similar challenges. Drummond's a great roller to the basket, in pick and roll, so's Gobert. Drummond has in the past handled the ball a lot, where he's kind of been a facilitator. Sometimes they'll throw the ball to Rudy, they'll play through him. But I think, in terms of how they impact the game, they maybe go about it a little bit differently. I think probably Gobert is maybe a little bit more impactful on the defensive end of the floor, in terms of what we talked about how they play. Because a lot of times I know last year with Detroit, they had him up at coverage, pick and roll wise. Utah's got Gobert back, so there's a little bit of difference there. So I think they impact their teams differently just based on what their teams need from them.
Billy, what do you attribute the confidence that Terrence is showing now, as opposed to the beginning of the season, being able to put the ball on the floor more?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really happy with the way he's playing, the things he's trying to do. He's making good decisions. He's got to keep on doing some of those things that gives us another guy on closeout situations to put the ball on the floor and create and attack the paint. It's been more just, I think everybody's trying to encourage him not to just, people use the word, just be aggressive. Okay, like, what does that mean? Like, does that mean shoot it every time I touch it? Or does it mean drive it every time I touch it? When I say be aggressive, like, he's got to play the game, and I think he's doing a good job of reading and picking his opportunities to attack.
Was that a point of emphasis for you all to get him to do that more? Or
Yes.
was it okay?
Yeah, we wanted him to do that a little bit more. Certainly him spacing the floor and catching and shooting is great, but when people are closing to him getting comfortable, putting down a couple dribbles, he doesn't have a pull-up, making the next pass. So that was something we wanted him to work on in the summer to get better at.
Is that just directly from the coaches, or the players telling them that as well? Is it?
I think, from a coaching perspective, you're looking at different ways that a player can impact the group and impact the team. So no question he was getting that from us. And then I think, when he's put the ball on the floor and he's attacked, I think guys have been very supportive of that for him. I don't know if they've, tell him, hey, don't shoot, drive. Hey, don't drive it, shoot it. They're not really doing that. Mm-hmm. But I think they've been very encouraging to Terrence as he continues to get better.
3-pointers, the defense tomorrow night, one of the biggest keys against this Jazz team.
Yeah, I mean, we have to do a good job in transition, defending the three, and obviously they're going to at times have, you know, a lot of guys out there that can shoot it. So we'll defend the 3-point line will be, you know, definitely a priority, and we'll have to do a better job than we have the last couple games.